Joining us now is a congressman who plans to do something about the DOMA ruling, and he is Kansas Congressman, Republican, of course, Tim Huelskamp. And Congressman, welcome to the show, sir.
Well, good afternoon. Pleasure to be with you.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I am very intrigued by your plan to introduce a constitutional amendment, an effort to gain a constitutional amendment to overturn the Supreme Court ruling on DOMA. Tell us how it works and when you plan on doing this.
Steve, it is definitely a difficult task to amend the Constitution. Our founders set it out that way, but I am certain our founders never intended for the U.S. Supreme Court to redefine marriage as they have attempted to do. But a warning to those folks, the debate over marriage is just beginning. They've attempted to short-circuit the process of democracy, and so we're going to try to respond and say, hey, we've got 37 states that clearly defined almost enough if we've given the opportunity already. Defined marriage is only between one man and one woman, but we're going to have an uphill battle just to get that through the House and Senate and send that back to the states for approval.
Absolutely, and let me start, if I may, with your own body and your own leadership, John Boehner. There's some speculation that he may be unwilling to cooperate. Yesterday, his statement was, "While I'm obviously disappointed in the ruling, it's always critical that we protect our system of checks and balances." Blah 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 blah. So, have you talked about this with the Speaker? Would you expect the Speaker to be behind your effort in this, or at least bring it to the floor for a vote?
Steve, I have not talked to the Speaker or any others in leadership. This is on very short notice. We didn't start the discussion until we saw the ruling, trying to make preparations. We're hoping for better news out of this court, and obviously disappointed, but I have not visited with leadership. But to let you know, though, last time we had a vote on the federal marriage amendment in the U.S. House. John Boehner voted for it. Eric Cantor voted for it, and the only other leader at that time that was here was Kathy McMorris Rogers voted for it. So 3 of our top 5 were here and voted yes. I would presume they're going to do the same. And John Boehner actually, he really stepped out. When Eric Holder refused to do his job, and the rest of the Barack Obama administration refused to defend the Defense of Marriage Act, it was John Boehner says, no, the House is going to step up and do the job for Eric Holder.
So you have some reason to be hopeful and that you'll get the cooperation of leadership.
I am hopeful, but it all remains to be seen. But again, it's a difficult task to get 2/3 of the House and certainly 2/3 of the Senate. I authored a Kansas marriage amendment back in 2005 in the state of Kansas, my home state. When I was in the state Senate, it took 2 years to get it done there, and then we had a 70% voter approval. But no, it is a difficult task. Our founders set it out that way. But I think this is the only legislative route ahead when you have the Supreme Court coming in trying to dictate their personal preferences on marriage and sexuality and impose them on the rest of America.
And explain why you feel that this is so important. That it, granted, there have been other court decisions, I'm sure, that you've disagreed with and felt as strongly about, or possibly not as strongly. But why do you feel so strongly about this issue, and why do you feel that this warrants a constitutional amendment to overturn?
Well, in my opinion, Steve, and literally the opinion of millions, in the case of marriage amendments, 43 million Americans have already pulled the lever and said we support marriages between only one man and one woman. They strongly feel about that. I do as well. But what has gotten lost is that with this decision, this attempt to radically redefine marriage, and it's not over yet. There are cases coming up that will probably stun us what they're going to argue before these courts. But what has gotten lost is that with this redefinition of marriage, we have allowed the courts and a minority of population to allow the desires of adults to trump the needs of children. I mean, decades of research have shown that, and generations and centuries of human experience have shown the ideal for society is every child deserves a mom and a dad married and in the home. And once you pull marriage out of that deal and continue to redefine it to mean about anything, which absolutely means nothing by the end of that, the children are the ones who get hurt. They deserve a mom and a dad, and marriage has always been the least restrictive means by which society and government can keep dad in the home and get him engaged. And mom's always there almost always there. It's dad that's been the problem throughout history. And so I'm worried about what happens with our children. We have an epidemic of fatherlessness. President Barack Obama and I agree on that. And how do we handle that? We need to be promoting marriage and families, not breaking it down with these type of court decisions.
We're talking to Congressman Tim Huelskamp from Kansas, Republican, here on the Steve Malzberg Show. So what's your timetable? Where do you go from here? How do you proceed with this kind of self-admitted, very tough plan?
Well, we have sent a letter around to our colleagues just a few hours ago, asking folks to sign up and sign on board, and we get enough of those that we hope to introduce it by tomorrow. That might have to wait to the following week or two, and it's hard to catch enough folks to sit down and say, hey, it's important enough to amend the Constitution. I think we had close to 2006 had over 230 votes. You need a lot more than that to get it done. So again, it's an uphill battle, and it's not supposed to be easy. But when it comes down to it, I think the children of America and the future of our society is worth a debate and taking up this challenge.
I'd be remiss if I didn't ask you, sir, about the vote that's due to take place any moment in the U.S. Senate on immigration reform. It's basically a fait accompli that bill will pass with well over 60 votes, possibly closer to 70. What do you think the chances for that bill in the Senate and in the House are? And are you encouraged by John Boehner's reiteration of his statement that the Hastert rule will apply here when it comes to immigration in the Senate and in the House?
There are a couple things there. Clearly, that immigration bill is the perfect bill if you want to make absolutely certain nothing would ever pass into law. That is guaranteed to have no passage in the House unless there's some tricky mechanics, and our entire leadership would shoot ourselves and themselves in the foot and do something like that. It's amnesty. There's no question about it. It's going to break the bank. It's going to break Social Security, and it's a mirage when it comes to border security. Nothing. So there's, in my mind, nothing good about it. And but what is the House response is? As you note, Speaker Boehner's reiterated he's going to won't bring a bill to the floor unless it has a majority of support in the Republican conference. But again, it's trust but verify it, and it only takes 17 Republicans to bring down a rule if John Boehner is going to violate the Hastert rule again. And I have voted against rules, and that's prevented some of these things from coming. We have a long ways to go, but everybody in Washington agrees the system's broke. But not everybody agrees the border's secure. This president claims the border's secure already, and the idea you're going to let the administration define a secure border is kind of like letting President Bill Clinton define what sexual relations were. It doesn't make much sense, Steve, and so I look forward for that bill to pass so it can be buried over here in the House and we can get to work on some real border security first and actually having a solution to our immigration system failures.
Congressman, a pleasure to talk to you. I hope you'll come back, sir.
I will have